Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, indeed. We'll be talking about the power sector, and we're turning our attention to the recent launch, wonderful activity that transpired in Aba in the southeast. And we're joined this morning by Professor Nnaji, Chairman of Geometric Power Limited. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Congratulations, Prof, for this particular feat. I mean, it's something that is going to be, or that already is and will continue to be, I reckon, at least a point of reference. Several institutions, individuals will be looking at your staying power 20 years on, and this is here. Perhaps we could even start by asking you, how did you stay on course? Because 10 years, 15 years down the line, many would have not sure this is going to happen.
Yes, thank you so much. I can tell you it's been quite a journey, but once we got started, there was really no going back. So it's just like if you're on a 100-kilometer journey and you've gone maybe 70% of it, you have to finish. Because you look backwards, you think that there's so much to lose in going back. So I am quite happy that we're able to start, go through it and complete.
But if other people, because I mean, the sector still a lot of areas and that people can come into play, from what you see at the moment, is it likely or will investors, groups, would they face this kind of challenge if they wanted to do a similar thing in the future?
Maybe not. Well, this is a proof of concepts. When we started, there wasn't even power reform. There was no private company in play. And so we were the first to start this journey. So perhaps the lessons from our experience would make it easier for others to navigate faster. So I believe that it shouldn't take the next 20 years for the next equivalent of ABBA IPP to come on stream.
Well, this certainly hasn't come easy, Prof. I mean, but I'm sure looking at the smile on your face and also seeing just how, residents are reacting. People in Aba have been reacting to this. On Twitter, we've been hearing how, I think that's X now, platform X. I really need to move my mind away from Twitter. They've been telling us how they've had 48 hours uninterrupted. I imagine by now
Already.
It would have been increased to 36 hours uninterrupted power supply.
Ooh.
That certainly must give you some satisfaction. But as a journalist who has been, interviewing for a while, I know this has come at a cost. And I remember the controversies that trailed geometric power when you were Minister of Power and how at the end of the day you had to resign. When you look back at how far you've come and this day and what residents are saying, how big a cost would you say it has been to you personally to be able to achieve this?
Well, the cost is in different ways, I would say. My gray hair is part of the cost, so you can see from it, if you measure 20 years on, I didn't have I've lost so much in that regard. Well, really, I would say that the various obstacles that we encountered gave us strength to continue to progress. In the end, we're able to arrive at this point. The people of Abia celebrating that. That's what gives us a lot of joy, because that's what we set out to do. We set out to build a reliable power infrastructure that will endure time. not something that is just start and stop. It is a project that is perpetual in its design. And that's it.
So for you, this has been all worth it. It's been worth the cost.
Yes, it's worth the cost.
I know my colleague spoke about challenges and how he believes that perhaps other people who seek to put up such an infrastructure in any other state might not need to go through all of the hurdles that you've crossed. Would you share with us some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to cross in bringing this to realization?
There are some that I don't want to talk about. Yes, but there are some that I would say the government recognizing that a project of this nature is not about the individual doing it, but it's a national project, is very, very important because we tend to have the attitude in Nigeria, why should you be the one doing it? Why should I give you this? And it could just be a piece of paper that is useful for making the project work. So such things are the sort of obstacles that I encountered. I would say that we are yet in Nigeria to learn how to support private sector investment. We have to be able to do it because government has a critical role to play in a lot of projects of this nature. Major infrastructure projects require government support, and we are not good at that yet. It looks like a gift to people when government has to give certain approvals, certain waivers that normally would come easily in a lot of countries that desire progress.
It's really sad to hear when you say that we're not yet at that place where, we can support businesses and support ideas that people have. And I'm wondering, you have also been minister. You've occupied a position where you've had to, be in a position to grant people support. Let me put it that way, grant businesses support. In your own experience as minister, what do you think is responsible for this mentality that has made us unable to support businesses and ideas as we ought to?
I can tell you, when I was minister, unless the idea is not correct, but once it is correct, we will do everything to support it. We, in fact, will go to try to find people who are capable of doing certain things to come and invest in the power sector. There are projects like Azura. The model that we set up is what made Azura come on stream as fast as it did. So you can imagine that if Azura had to go through the sort of thing that we went through, there would be no Azura today. So, So I think that having been there, knowing what is required of a minister, for example, to enable private sector investment, what you have to do today shouldn't wait till tomorrow. That's very important, and where people keep things waiting. So you have to move fast. In a country that, for example, here we need a lot of power, and we need to move things on as quickly as possible to give support.
Well, when you just said we need power, and yesterday evening I also listened to the interview you granted us on the news at 10, when you talked about how all of the power that this IPP, the geometric power is going to be provided now to Aba and Abia, about 3 million people, you said, is equivalent to what Enugu Disco is supposed to be providing to the entire Southeast, I think. So certainly, it does appear that there is sufficient power now going to be resident in Aba. What sort of development are you hoping that this would spur in a city we know has been very commercial in nature, very entrepreneurial in nature? What are the sort of developments you're hoping this will bring to bear?
Develop. Let me just say that the amount of power that is going to be domiciled in Aba is roughly about half of the power. Actually, by the time we finish installing the fourth turbine, we have 188 megawatts installed capacity for Aba. That's almost 2/3 of what Enugu Disco, that's 5 states, currently gets. So you can imagine the way to ensure reliability is that you have to have more than just adequate power. You have to have more than the requirement for the area. It must be more. So because you cannot predict peak load for power always. These people can just decide to do something and draw power. But what does it do for the area in terms of development? Significant. We expect that the existing industries that are just trying to survive will come alive and begin to expand, grow. We expect that some of the industries that are dead will wake up. We expect that new industries will come. Some will move from different places. Some will come from outside the country into Aba. The small and medium scale industries will begin to prosper. There are some products that are made here that can now be made seamlessly, like the garment industry. One of the reasons why you don't find the garment business selling products in various major stores in US and Europe is because they can't make the product repetitively same. They need to be able to make the same size of a garment, the same thousands of them to supply. The leather products industry, for example, very big business area. Shoes, belts, handbags can be made from hides and skins coming from the northern part of Nigeria. Some of the things that used to actually exist in Nigeria, it's not so alien, can begin to come alive again. There was such a time when rubber coming from the Midwest would be used to make tires in Ibadan and in Port Harcourt, Michelin, Dunlop, and then brake parts, disc brakes. All those things can now be made, and because of electricity availability. So we just have to recognize that manufacturing requires electricity, and that manufacturing ought to be a major contributor to the GDP of Nigeria. And not, in fact, if you have very good manufacturing base, the oil industry is going to be so small in comparison.
So, Prof, we hear the discos, Gencos talking about subsidy because they say they're not charging reflective tariff. So Who knows if government will insist on that? But how does that apply to you, to geometric power?
Well, we haven't we haven't asked for subsidy because what we focus on is providing reliable electricity. We believe that the people here will pay for power if they get it, and we're a regulated industry, so all the distribution company of geometric power, which is Aba Power, is regulated. So we don't charge premium for reliable electricity. But we are confident that people would prefer not to be their own power providers, and that they would prefer to pay for power. The way the power, the regulator structures tariff is that they have bands. So if you have if you're getting more than 20 hours, then you are going to be getting, if you're getting 20, then you have a certain tariff that you will pay. If you're getting 18 hours, a certain tariff. So the people in Aba, who, as many of them are in business, they want the job, they want is to get the electricity. So that's just it. We think that we don't particularly, subsidy. If government is able to provide a subsidy for discos to be able to provide electricity because they're not getting cost-reflective tariff. One, you can say that it is that kind of request is honest. It can be understood.
So do we say then that you're charging cost-reflective tariff?
We are not charging exactly cost-reflective tariff. I don't think any disco is charging cost-reflective tariff, but we're charging tariff that is certain to ensure that we don't lose the business itself.
Prof, one of the things that comes, and I'm really glad that at least you began to talk about some of these issues, particularly affordability for a good number of people who are going to be using it. Congratulations once again, by the way. But Mark asked you a question the other time about, how this goes with government. And a good number of people would remember that a number of other attempts as about the same time you started this project, in 2004 or thereabout. Such other attempts were made. Now, speak to the possibility of such a project as geometric power cascading across the country and the privileges, the contribution such would make to Nigeria's economy.
Oh, tremendous. I cannot look at think of the blotter. That's the example I usually use. It's a blotter, an ink approach. So if you drop ink and a part of a blotter, then it begins to spread. And if you drop it at various places, then eventually the entire blotter would have ink. So if I look at the project that we have here, you can do the same thing, say, in Lagos, and in fact, you can do in Eko, you can do in Ikeja, you can do in Kano, you can do in Kaduna, various places where you have economic activity, industrial activity. And if you begin to look at the possibility of all of them eventually expanding, then that's what can help the country. You need to have a tightly coupled generation and distribution, not generation that there is no direct relationship between generation and distribution. You know, the way it was set up before, where you have generation companies selling power through NBET, and then to the distribution company. It was to ensure a period where the distribution companies become creditworthy to buy directly. So that direct relationship is what is important, whether the power is being sent through the transmission company or in the way that we have. We don't necessarily have to go through the transmission company. We take the power straight to the distribution company on a sub-transmission network, and then to the consumers of electricity. So it's totally possible for this to be replicated throughout the country, and it will be a very good way to not have to rely on the national grid power arrangement.
You know, Prof, having been Minister of Power, you definitely have some perspectives. I would rather use that than use the word information. Perspectives that can be helpful to, say, state governments, for instance. There was such an attempt in Lagos, you're aware. Is there a way that state governments can actually lead this front? One can just imagine the excitement, the joy in the heart of the governor, now Governor Oti, about this project, in the state. Speak to us about the potential capacity challenges that state governments can encounter should they decide to embark on such a project in their own states, so that the economic activities in the various states can be taken care of significantly. One of such examples, Prof, if I may add, is the huge losses that farmers make simply because what they call post-harvest loss. That will be greatly reduced. For instance, a number of people believe if power was available and they can take care of that situation using some form of technology backed by electricity. How can state governments take advantage of such an opportunity, particularly at this time?
Thank you. That's a very good question, because there's a law, there's an amendment of the Act, Electricity Act, that's now in force, which has given more strength to states to do something about electricity, in particular, have state regulation of power. But I think maybe in some states, they will misunderstand it and think that it's going to be an easy journey to do that. First, virtually all the electricity infrastructure in Nigeria is privately owned. And so for a state government to now begin to build power projects, they either have to work with that private company that is in charge of, that's the owner of the network, or they have to build their own. And you have to understand that the network that exists now has been built over many, many, many years. So just even in Aba alone, you have thousands and thousands of kilometers of network, of power lines, thousands of transformers. So no government in Nigeria will try to undertake that. So you have to partner. So that partnership is very important. And so a governor that understands that partnership will be of tremendous use to them, will be good. If you look at just the power plant, to build a power plant, there are only two states, that have built major power plants in Nigeria, and that is Rivers State and Akwa Ibom State. But the River State power plants have been basically sold because it's difficult for a state to run a power plant. Difficult. So you have to still get private sector to do it professionally. The one of Akwa Ibom is there, and there are some constraints to it. I think that the governor is interested in seeing that that power gets evacuated, because the power that is there, which is huge power that can be of great use in Nigeria, is somewhat stranded. So these are the things, and these are major investments that have been made by these two states. So we have to the governments can actually do a lot in terms of power, but they need to be able to play the government role in doing it. Government is an enabler. Government provides support that will make companies operating within their states to be effective. So if they do it like they want to just begin to build power plants and begin to build distribution infrastructure, that would be difficult to manage.
Well, your project, Geometric Power, took about 20 years.
Sorry, if I may. There's another aspect where state governments can do a lot, like making an act like the power theft that all the schools encounter. The punishment for power theft, the state governments can do a lot to curb that, and that is something that also they can have to support.
Because I remember, I remember Mr. Fashola, when he was Minister of Power, talked about that a lot. But your project took about 20 years. Does it have to take 20 years, really? I mean, how long should it take so that at least the governors or the various governments can have an idea, of time and timing?
3 years.
This project can be executed in 3 years?
Yes.
With the right partnership, then?
With no roadblocks.
Okay. Now, gladly, the lead has been taken off through the amended laws and constitution and the rest of them. So now, for anyone, I mean, you have been in this space, you've talked about manufacturing, in fact, that's one of your specialty and all of that. What are the considerations? One of the issues that was also raised previously is the affordability of electricity in some quarters. We heard stories of some states in the country, and they said that they had too much power, too much electricity, and that they couldn't even afford, the electricity that was being supplied to them, that they didn't even want 24 hours because it was too costly for them. Speak to us about that one and how, because there are those who would say, just as you say, it's a heavy investment, it's a capital intensive project. So speak to us about affordability of, at least at the level of the consumers, and other considerations, challenges, and the rest of them that may get in the way.
Yes, thank you. Well, one of the major things we are trying to do is to meter the customers, because we believe that with the smart meters, you decide how much electricity you consume, when you consume it. You're your own regulator of use of electricity. But and so it's not an estimated billion. Of course, metering is a very expensive endeavor as well. But I think that that electricity is affordable. You just have to decide what you do. So energy management is what is important here, which the responsible distribution company has to also help the consumers to do. But also the consumers in particular should be able to manage how much electricity they consume. So I think that it's totally affordable. The tariff is not untoward when we look at the tariff, particularly the one that we see going to the consumers.
You talked about government as an enabler, and power is also an enabler. I'm glad to know that, you set it up in that particular environment because of its huge potential in the area of production. If you would project another 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years from now, what do you see this power plant, this geometric power, your organization,
you're hearing too much noise with that. It's a power plant.
Okay. Can you hear me now, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if you can we continue? Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you very well, but I'm just wondering when. Okay, now it's okay. It's a problem.
All right.
Doing processes.
Okay, so speak to us another 10, 15, 20 years from now. What do you see this power project enabling in that environment in terms of production and manufacturing?
I think that if the government does what it's supposed to do, which I see the government in terms of creating enabling infrastructure like the roads, providing security, that with electricity, this metropolis will begin to be like, I foresee it being what they tout itself. They say it is the Taiwan of Africa, which means that it's about production. We begin to see a multiplicity of different products being produced here. Already there are people calling us. Some are making some different types of products that want to come, and these are big companies that want to come here to establish. They want to come to establish, and some of them are coming from outside the country. Some of them are in country. They just want to come here. It's all about reliable electricity. So I foresee this tremendous growth here.
Now, talk to us about the possibility of the different states in the different regions that they have positioned themselves, creating some kind of regional electricity system in the event that one state or the other is unable to come up with it by themselves. As at the moment, or rather until recently, the law only enabled a national grid, a national power project. Now we have in different states, just such as the one that you have come up with now. Do you see a situation where in the event that one state is unable to come up with it by themselves, even with the partnerships, thinking, okay, maybe the people in this particular locality may not be able to help us sustain the business. Talk to us about the possibility of regional power systems, a step down, so to speak, from the national system that we had before.
In fact, you're thinking it right here, because that's what can actually happen. It's just that sometimes state governments tend to be thinking about what they can do by themselves. But collaboration can lead to tremendous growth. Synergy will be achieved in that. There are just certain things the individual states may not be able to do. but jointly they can achieve. Already, there's nothing that stops states from collaborating in transmission of electricity. Before, you couldn't do 132 kV transmission, but now there's nothing that stops a state or a group of states from doing that. For example, if a power plant is in one state and the other state needs that power but doesn't have the fuel to produce the power, then the state that has the power plant can build the power plant, transmit, or can have that power plant there, transmit the power to the other state or other states. So this is totally possible collaboration, and I think that this aggregation of the national grid, you still have to have a national grid, okay, for wheeling of power to anywhere, but you can have sub regional grid. You can have regional grids, which when you have, they're kind of semi-autonomous. And this is something I've advocated for, that it is the way for us to not be having a national grid collapse going forward.
Yeah, Prof. I mean, I see you say that you'll be distributing you prioritize local communities, of course, but you'll be distributing the surplus to the national grid. And speaking about that, what challenges do you see, and what do you think should happen? Because when you distribute to the national grid, you know the challenges that people talk about when it comes to the national grid.
Yes, of course, we will have the same challenges. Whatever challenge all the other GENCOs have in sending power to will be what we have. But the main challenge really is more about payment. It's not that you can't connect to the national grid. We will connect to we are connected to national grid actually. But when I say you put to the national grid, it's loosely said, because we could sell power across to the other states. Still, maybe it's not our own grid. Maybe it is even within Enugu Disco. We can sell power to with an agreement with the Enugu Disco, transmit the power that they are buying to, say, Umaya, or to Owerri, or to Enugu, or to Nnewi. But it has to be that there is an understanding, there is an agreement. But it is still national grid, or you can use the national grid to transmit it. But there are some that are close by. We can use our own transmission line to send.
I mean, naturally, people would expect that conversation will happen. And in fact, they already think that there should be a conversation perhaps between yourself and other states to see how they can collaborate, in the region, to see how there can be a region-wide power supply so that other regions can look at this model, because this is a first that is fully vertically integrated with embedded generation and distribution in the country. So it's something that other regions can indeed look and say, look, this is something we can do, because when we hear you say it can take just 3 years, any governor that comes in can actually embark on this. This is what the country needs, and that's why we can't talk about this enough. But could you tell us, as we wind down, what perhaps the future plans that you've got, maybe in the region or moving forward? What should we expect?
Actually, as far back as almost 8 years now, we had finished development of another power project in collaboration with General Electric. It's a much bigger power project. We're doing it in 2 phases. We have license for 1,080 megawatts power plant. And what we were going to do was to build the first phase, which is 560 megawatts. Anyway, it's a grid power, national grid power. But of course, what happened? It's totally completed in terms of development. When we say development, it means all the things you need to start it were already there, except that the off-taker has to sign off. And who is the off-taker? The off-taker is the federal government of Nigeria. So we had gone through all the processes. The financing was ready to go, but it didn't start. It's not just that project. A number of other companies that had reached that level, their projects stalled, and that's why today you don't have in the last 8-9 years you don't have any power plants that is commissioned, except what we are doing now.
Well, Prof, once again, we really have to celebrate your tenacity. I mean, a project that ought to take 3 years, taken far much longer, excuse me, and you're still staying at it and making sure that your dreams actually do come to life. That is proof of perseverance. But yesterday, some controversy broke out. My colleague, Seun Okinbaloye, was interviewing the governor of Abia State, and there were questions as to whether or not the Abia State government owns shares in Geometric. Do you want to shed a little more light on what the shareholder list looks like?
I will talk about everybody, but I will say that Abia State, yes, did invest in 2020 when we needed to, when Afro Exim Bank required that we have additional equity. So Abia State took up what now amounts to about 3.4% of 3.5% equity position in the project.
So the Abia State government has 3.5% equity in Geometric Power?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. That's...
All right, Prof. I mean, we do thank you very much indeed, and we're looking forward to see that the other projects you have also come on stream. This is the kind of narrative that the country needs to hear and needs to do no matter what. So thank you, congratulations, and all the best to yourself and the team.
Thank you very much, Chandler.